The alarms were silent now. Only dim red lights still glowed along the cracked walls of Varel Station, a once proud hub left to rot in the cold darkness of space. Bryn stepped carefully over broken steel beams and scorched wires, scanning for life signs. The air was heavy with the stale bite of burned circuits. His ship's comm link hissed with static, but no orders came through. He was alone here, and that was fine. Sometimes alone was better. He moved deeper into the station. The scanner on his wrist gave a faint pulse, then a stronger signal. Bryn's eyes narrowed as he turned the corner, finding a metal doorway half bent from an explosion. Behind it, a small security field was still active, glowing weakly. Inside, he saw a figure sitting against the wall, her knees pulled to her chest. Her suit was patched with old repairs, and a metal mask covered her face. She did not move until he stepped closer. Then, slowly, she raised her head. A faint, broken voice came through the masked speaker. "Stay away," she said. The words muffled. Bryn held up his empty hands to show he had no weapon ready. "I'm here to help," he answered calmly. She did not respond. Her breathing was ragged, almost mechanical. The security field sparked with failing energy, and Bryn knew it would not hold much longer. If the station lost all power, she would be trapped and die alone. "Can you move?" He escaped. The woman hesitated, then shook her head once. Bryn stepped around the doorway, studying the controls. He connected a small power pack to the field stabilizer. The field shimmered and dropped away. She shrank back as if expecting pain, but he did nothing except hold out a small water pouch. "Here." Bryn Offeredge took it with shaking fingers. "My name is Bryn," he told her. She looked at him, but said nothing. The water helped her voice recover enough to speak again. "Ellen," she whispered. "Ellen, are you injured?" He sketch touched her ribs carefully. "Maybe," she admitted. Bryn decided to carry her rather than risk further harm. When he reached for her, she froze, but did not resist as he lifted her. She weighed less than he expected, as if hunger and fear had hollowed her bones. His boots echoed down the ruined hallways while he carried Ellen back to his shuttle. Along the way, Bryn glanced down at her metal mask. It had a simple filter and voice module, but no markings of rank or homeworld. He wondered what she was hiding behind it, but said nothing. Questions could wait until she was safe outside the station. The shuttle waited with its ramp open. Bryn laid Ellen gently on the padded bench inside. The ship's lights were warm and steady, making the station's darkness feel like a bad dream. Ellen tried to sit up, but Bryn placed a careful hand on her shoulder. "Rest," he told her. She leaned back, breathing hard through the mask's filter. Bryn ran a basic scan and found no serious wounds, only dehydration and weakness. That was fixable. As the shuttle engines hummed to life, he heard Ellen whisper something so soft the translator almost missed it. "Why did you save me?" Bryn paused. "Because no one should be left behind." Sage did not reply, only turned her face to the side. Her mask gleamed under the shuttle's lights during the flight back to orbit. Bryn tried to contact command but got no signal through the storm of radiation still sweeping the region. He decided to head for the nearest medical station on his own. The shuttle rocked gently as it broke away from Varel Station. Bryn kept checking on Ellen. She slept, or pretended to, her breathing shallow, even in sleep. Her hands were curled tight, as if she feared something would come for her again. Hours passed. The ship's autopilot took them through a safe corridor, while Bryn cleaned away what was left of burned wiring on the shuttle floor. He had seen many battles, many wounded, but something about Ellen's silence was different. She was not only hurt, she was terrified of something inside herself. When she woke again, she stared at him with wide eyes behind the mask. "Where are we going?" she asked a human medical post. He answered, shook her head so sharply that he paused. "No," she insisted. "They will not understand." Bryn looked at her carefully. Her voice carried a pain that went beyond wounds or hunger. He nodded. "Then I will keep you on my ship until you are ready." He offered at her shoulders loosened a fraction, as if he had lifted a great weight from her. The ship's AI beeped a quiet warning that its medical scanner detected unusual genetic markers in Ellen's blood. Bryn silenced the alert. He would deal with questions later. First, she needed to feel safe. They reached deep space, away from the station's ruin and away from pursuit. Bren gave her food and let her sit in the common room. Ellen barely touched the meal, eyes fixed on nothing. Do you want to tell me what happened there? He sketched shook her head. Not now, she said. Bren accepted that. He turned on the soft music that the old shuttle still carried in its systems. It was a gentle human melody, slow and hopeful. Ellen listened, head tilted. Then, almost shyly, she asked, "What is this?" "It is called a lullaby," Bren told her. "Humans use it to feel calm." She repeated the word lullaby in a small voice, as if testing it. Then she closed her eyes and let the music wash over her. For the first time since he found her, Bren saw her hands relax. He watched her, determined to keep his promise. Whoever she was, whatever she had been through, she would not be abandoned again. The shuttle glided through the stars while the lullaby played on, a fragile bridge of sound between two souls who barely knew each other but were no longer alone. The stars outside the ship moved slowly as the shuttle continued its path through deep space. Inside, the lights were soft and warm, and the engines hummed with a steady rhythm. The silence between Bren and Ellen was heavy but not cold. She sat in the far corner of the small common room, still wearing her mask, still quiet. Bren sat across from her with a warm drink in his hands. He didn't speak much either. Sometimes words only push people further away. He had seen that during his early missions, the shuttle had enough food, air, and power to last weeks. But Bren had no plan for what came next. The human outposts nearby were not safe for someone like Ellen. She had asked him not to take her there, and he had agreed. Now they were floating in a quiet stretch of space, waiting for the right moment to decide the next step. He placed a wrapped meal pack on the table between them and slid it toward her. "You haven't eaten since we left the station," he said. Gently Ellen looked down at the food. It was a simple bread bar, soft and warm, with a small cube of sweet fruit gel. After a long pause, she picked it up. Her gloves made the motion stiff, but her fingers did not tremble like before. She held the food close, then turned her head slightly away before lifting her mask just enough to slip the bread beneath. Bren did not stare. He turned his eyes to the stars through the side window, giving her space. When she finished, she placed the wrapper carefully back on the table. "Thank you," she said, her voice quiet through the mask. "You're welcome," Bren replied. "There's more if you need." She nodded once. Then silence returned. Not as sharp as before, but still full of questions. Bren leaned back in his chair. "Do you want to know more about Earth?" Ellen looked at him. She said nothing, but she didn't look away. "That was enough. It's not perfect," Bren said, "but it is mountains and forests and cities that shine all night. It is rain that smells clean and oceans that go farther than sight." Ellen tilted her head slightly, like a child hearing a story for the first time. "Do you miss it?" she asked. "Sometimes," he said, "but people matter more than places. That's why I joined the scout fleet, to help people, wherever they are." Ellen lowered her gaze. "You don't even know who I am." "I know you were alone and needed help," he said. That was enough. For me. She grew still. A long silence followed. Bren thought the conversation might be over, but then she spoke again. "Varel Station was not always broken," she said slowly. "I lived there once. Before it fell." Bren didn't interrupt. "It was a free zone. Many kinds lived together, traders, farmers, artists, but then the war spread. The station tried to stay neutral. That didn't last." Her voice held both pain and memory. "Who attacked it?" Bren asked. Ellen was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "The Zereth came. They didn't destroy it fully. They wanted it as a signal post. But they left us in ruin, half dead, sealed inside the dark." Bren's hands curled slightly. He knew the Zereth. Many did. They didn't just conquer. They broke minds. "Why did they leave you alive?" he asked carefully. Ellen's fingers curled on the table. "I don't know," she said. "Maybe they forgot me. Or maybe they remembered the ship's AI." Beeped quietly from the control panel. Bren stood and checked the alert. A small asteroid cluster was ahead, but nothing dangerous. He set the shuttle to slow down and turned back to her. You're safe now. He said no one is safe forever. Ellen replied, maybe not. Brent agreed. But that doesn't mean we stop living. We eat. We rest. We talk. We heal. Ellen looked at him for a long moment. Her voice was quiet but steady. Do humans always speak like this? Only the good ones. Brent said with a small smiley, a flicker of something, not quite a smile, crossed her eyes behind the mask. That night, if night could be counted. In space, Brent stayed awake while she rested. He watched the stars and thought about how strange fate was. Of all the places in the galaxy, of all the people he could have found in that ruined station, it was her. Ellen woke once and walked quietly into the common room. Brent handed her another food pack without a word. She took it, sat across from him again, and this time did not hide as she ate. When she finished, she surprised him with a question. What is your home like? Brent spoke of a small village near a frozen lake, of trees that bent under heavy snow, of the sound of birds in spring. Ellen listened without blinking. It sounds warm, she said at last. It was. He replied. She sat back and folded her hands in her lap. I don't remember a warm place, she admitted. Only metal, training, silence. Varel was the first place that almost felt like a home then. We will find you another one. Brent Sadlin looked at him with something close to hope in her voice. Why do you keep helping me? Brent met her gaze. Because I believe you're more than what happened to you, and I think you believe it too. Even if just a little. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she nodded. Just once. In the still ship, floating between stars, two strangers began to become something more. Not friends yet, not partners, but to people who no longer sat in silence. The shuttle drifted through quiet space, following a slow path near the outer rings of a gas giant. The clouds below moved in long waves of color, peaceful and silent. Inside the ship, Brent and Ellen had found a rhythm. She spent time in the common room now, sometimes reading old data logs or listening to Earth music. Brent gave her space. But when she spoke, he always answered. Every day, the silence between them grew smaller. But something still held Ellen back. She wore the metal mask always. Even when alone, she never removed her gloves. And sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, she stared into empty space as if waiting for something to find her. That something came sooner than either of them expected. Brent was in the control room when the ship's alarm buzzed. A new signal appeared on the screen, fast-moving, not registered as friendly. 3 vessels, sleek and dark, closing in. He tapped the ship's comm. Ellen, get to the cockpit. Now she arrived within seconds. Her body moved stiffly, but her eyes were sharp. She looked at the screen once and froze. No, she whispered. Brent turned to her. You know them, they're Xerath, she said quietly. I can tell by the flight pattern, the shape of the front wing. That model was used for hunting patrols. Why are they here? Ellen didn't answer. Her hands were clenched so tight. The fabric of her gloves creaked. Brent began evasive movement, sending the shuttle through a narrow asteroid belt. It was risky, but their only chance. Can you fly? He asked. Yes, she said, already sliding into the co-pilot seat. Brent didn't question her. The moment her hands touched the controls, she moved like someone who had done this 1,000 times. Her breathing calmed. Her eyes locked on the data screen. The shuttle dipped between spinning rocks and thick dust clouds. Behind them, the Xerath ships followed without hesitation. They're not firing, Brent said. They're trying to corner us. Ellen nodded. They want to capture, not destroy. Why? She didn't answer. One of the Xerath ships moved too close to a large asteroid. It clipped the edge and exploded in silence, flames spinning away into the void. 2 left, Brent said, but they're faster than us. Then we use their own trick against them. Ellen Sage quickly mapped a path into a radiation corridor. It was unstable, filled with charged gas from a nearby star. Dangerous, but not impossible. No one flies through that, Brent said. I've done it before, she replied. They taught me how. Brent looked at her. Taught you? Ellen didn't meet his eyes. Just fly. I'll guide us through. He trusted her. There was no time for questions. The shuttle spun left and dove into the glowing corridor. red and blue lightning danced around them. The shields screamed under the pressure, but they held. Behind them, one Zereth ship followed, the other slowed, unsure. Ellen tapped controls rapidly, sending a false signal back along the path. Now, she said. Cut power. Drift. Bren did as she said. The ship's engines went dark. They floated among the gas like debris. The following ship locked onto the false signal and fired. The blast struck the signal marker hidden in the gas. It exploded with a bright burst, and the energy ripple slammed into the enemy vessel. It broke apart and vanished. Only one Zereth ship remained. It hovered just outside the corridor, not daring to enter. They're waiting for us to come out. Bren said we'll take another way. Ellen replied, there's an old mining tunnel near the next moon. It's rough, but it leads out of the system. How do you know these paths? Ellen was quiet. Then she said, because they used me to test them. Bren looked at her. He had guessed pieces before, but now it was clear. You were with them. She nodded slowly. Not by choice. I was raised in one of their labs, modified, trained, watched. They made me a tool, but I ran. I broke out during a system failure. I thought I was free, and now they want you back or destroyed, she said. They can't let me live. I know too much. Bren's voice was calm. You're not a tool. You're a person. They don't get to decide your worth. Ellen looked at him, but her mask hid her face. He could only see her eyes, and even those were hard to read. They made it to the mining tunnel. The path was narrow and filled with old machinery, but Ellen's directions were exact. Bren flew slowly, careful not to scrape the shuttle on the sharp turns. The last Zereth ship tried to follow, but lost their trail. The tunnel closed behind them, hiding their heat signature. After a long, tense hour, they emerged into empty space again. Safe for now, Bren turned the ship back to auto control and stood. His body was stiff from tension. You knew how to fly like them. Think like them, he said. You saved us. I learned to survive. Ellen replied, that's all. No. Bren said, that's not all. You chose to protect this ship. You chose to help me. That wasn't survival. That was something more. Ellen lowered her head. You don't have to hide from me, Bren said. Whatever they did to you, you were not them. Her fingers touched her mask, but she didn't remove it. Not yet. I want to believe that, she said softly. Then believe it, he replied. One step at a time, the ship moved forward, deeper into unknown space. For the first time since leaving the station, Ellen looked ahead, not behind. The stars looked peaceful again after the escape from the Zereth ships. The shuttle drifted near a quiet moon covered in ice. The ship's systems were stable. Fuel levels were strong. The danger had passed for now. But inside the ship, both Bren and Ellen knew the storm was not over. Ellen sat alone in the back room, staring at her gloves. Her hands were shaking again. She tried to stop it, but her fingers would not obey. The old feelings were returning. Not fear of death, but fear of being seen, fear of being known. Bren stayed in the front for a while, giving her space. But when an hour passed and she didn't come out, he brought her a warm drink and sat down across from her. He placed the drink gently in front of her and said nothing at first. Ellen spoke before he could. Her voice was low. I was not born free. Bren listened without interrupting. My people were taken before I was born. The Zereth didn't just fight wars. They captured entire colonies and turned the children into projects. They mixed blood, changed bones, reprogrammed minds. I was one of them, a test subject. Bren's eyes stayed on her, steady and kind. I don't remember my parents. I don't know what planet I came from. I only remember white walls, cold tables, and voices behind glass. They gave me numbers instead of a name. They tested how fast I could learn, how much pain I could take. I was their tool until you escaped, Bren said quietly. Lynn nodded slowly. There was a security breach. One of the labs caught fire. I didn't run at first. I was afraid. But a girl next to me, she grabbed my hand and said, we're not tools. We're people. What happened to her? Bren asked. She didn't make it past the second gate. Ellen said. Her voice cracked slightly. She bought me time. I kept running. I didn't even look back. She paused and breathed slowly. I found Varel Station by accident. It was half abandoned, but it had power. I used the systems to hide my signals, change my records. I made a new name, Ellen. Just a name I heard in an old song. Bryn's voice was calm. You chose it. That means something. Ellen looked at him. I lived there for almost a year. Worked as a tech. I started to feel normal. Then the Zeroth came again. Not for the station. For me they tracked you. Bryn said. They don't forgive, she replied. They don't forget. I escaped again, but the station didn't. Everyone I knew there died because I was hiding among them. You don't know that for sure. Bryn said. I saw the bodies, Ellen said, her voice quiet but steady. I stayed hidden in the lower decks. I wanted to fight, but I didn't even have a weapon. I wanted to scream, but I had to stay quiet. I watched them destroy the only place that ever felt like home. Bryn sat in silence for a moment. Then he asked, why did you let me rescue you if you believe you were dangerous to others? Ellen looked down. I didn't expect to live, she said. But then you came, and you didn't look at me like I was broken. You didn't treat me like an enemy. You just said, I'm here to help. Bryn smiled slightly. I meant it. She reached up and touched her mask. This is not just to hide my face, she said. It's made from Zeroth tech, part of the suit they gave me. It still runs scans on my body. It monitors my thoughts. I don't even know what's fully inside it. Bryn frowned. Can you take it off? She hesitated. I can, but I haven't done it in years. I don't know what you'll see underneath. I don't know if I'll still look normal. I don't care about normal, Bryn said. I care about who you are, not what they made you. Ellen shook her head slowly. You don't understand, she said. They made us to look beautiful, but not natural, strong, but not gentle. They called it perfection, but it was just another kind of prison. Bryn leaned forward. Then break the prison, he said. You already escaped once. Now finish it. Ellen's hand stayed near her mask but didn't move. Not yet. I want to, she whispered. But I'm afraid. What if you look at me and see what they see? I won't. Bryn Salin stared at him. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. I've lost every place I've called home, she said. Every person I trusted, every hope I tried to build. I can't lose another one. You won't lose me, he said firmly. You don't have to face this alone. Silence settled again, but it was softer now. Ellen finally picked up the warm drink he brought. She took a slow sip. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Later that night, while Bryn slept in the pilot seat, Ellen stood in front of the small mirror in the back room. Her hands hovered near the edge of her mask. She didn't remove it, not yet. But she looked into her own eyes and whispered her name, Ellen, and for the first time, it felt real. The stars outside the shuttle moved slowly as the ship reached the edge of human-controlled space. In the distance, a large outpost came into view. It was built into the side of an old moon, shaped like a metal flower blooming in space. Ships of many kinds flew in and out of its docking rings. Bryn watched it from the front window. His face was calm, but his mind was full of thoughts. Ellen stood behind him, silent as usual. Her mask still covered her face, but her voice was clearer than before. This is where we part, she said. Bryn turned his chair around. You don't have to go, he replied and stepped forward. They'll scan the ship. They'll see what I am. They'll ask questions you don't want to answer. It's better if I turn myself in. Let them decide what to do with me. No, Bryn said simply. You're not some object to hand over. You're not a weapon. You're not their problem to solve. Ellen folded her arms. You still don't understand what I'm carrying. The mask is old tech. Some of it is still active. If they detect it, they'll assume I'm a danger. Then we explain the truth. He said they won't care, Ellen said. Even if they listen to you, they'll study me. Lock me in a lab. Maybe even tear this mask off my face without warning. Bryn stood up now. His voice was steady. They won't do that while I'm with you. Ellen looked at him. Her voice softened. You don't owe me anything, Bryn. You saved me. You gave me food and safety. That's more than I ever expected. Bryn took a slow breath. You think this is about owing someone. It's not. It's about choosing someone. I choose to stay with you, not because I have to, but because I want to. Ellen turned away. Her shoulders were tense. Her fingers moved to the edge of her mask but stopped again. You've known me for only a few days, she said, You don't even know what I really look like." Bren walked closer. "I know what matters. I know your heart. I know your courage. You risked your life to guide us through that storm. You fought your fear every day on this ship, and you stayed kind through all of it. That's more than most can say." Ellen said nothing. The ship's alert chimed softly. Docking clearance had been granted. Bren looked at her one last time. "If you want to go, I won't stop you, but I won't leave you behind. Not if you still need someone." She turned back to him. Her voice was quiet. "You really mean that?" "I do." He said. A long silence followed. The engines hummed softly, waiting for a choice. Then, slowly, Ellen reached forward and pressed a command on the screen. The ship's path shifted. Instead of docking, it turned away from the outpost and entered a side route, a private channel, a path for those who wanted to remain unseen. "You chose me," she said. "Now I choose to stay." Bren smiled. Not a wide smile, but a warm one. "Where to next?" he asked. Ellen pulled up a star map. Her fingers moved across the glowing screen. "There's a settlement near the edge of this sector," she said. "Old mining colony, mostly empty. No patrols, no scans. We could land there and repair the ship. Get supplies. Maybe rest for a while." "Sounds perfect." Bren Sage nodded and set the course. The ship turned again, now flying with purpose. Later that day, Bren cooked something simple from the emergency ration packs. He wasn't a great cook, but the smell filled the room with warmth. Ellen joined him at the small table. She removed one glove this time, just one. Her hand was not metal, but smooth with faint patterns like silver lines under the skin. Not human, not fully alien either, something in between, something made. Bren did not stare. He handed her a warm cup and said nothing about the hand. Ellen held the drink carefully and whispered, "You didn't flinch. Why would I?" He replied. She looked at her hand. "I used to hate this. These marks, this skin. I thought they were the proof of what they made me. But now I wonder if they're just a part of me. Not all of me." "Scars can become stories," Bren said. "And stories can become strength." She nodded slowly. "Maybe I'll believe that one day you're already halfway there." He said that night. The stars outside were quiet. The ship moved peacefully through open space. Ellen sat by the window alone. She held her mask in her lap. Her face was still hidden in shadow, but for the first time, the mask was not on her skin. Bren passed by, saw her, and said nothing. He only walked into the control room and left her with her moment. Ellen looked at the stars. She whispered her own name again. Then, as if answering a quiet voice in her mind, she said one more thing. "I'm not what they made. I am what I choose to become." The mask sat quietly in her hands. No longer her shield, but only a memory. The ship touched down on a quiet moon, far from trade routes and scanner patrols. Old mining buildings stood in the dust, half covered by wind and time. The sky above was dark and deep, filled with soft stars that watched without judgment. Bren stepped out first, his boots pressed into the dusty ground. The air was thin but breathable. The silence here felt safe. Behind him, Ellen walked slowly, her steps careful. She no longer wore her mask. She had left it on the ship. Her face was not what many would call ordinary. Her skin had a pale silver glow beneath the surface, with faint ridges along her cheeks and lines that shimmered gently in the light. Her eyes were large, clear, and bright with a soft blue color that did not seem human. But her expression held something stronger than any design. It held life. Bren didn't look away. He didn't stare either. He simply walked beside her, as if nothing had changed. They entered one of the old buildings. It had once been a worker station, with tools and bunk beds covered in dust. Together, they cleaned the space to rest. Ellen moved slowly, her body still recovering. Bren watched her, but gave her space. Later, as the sun dipped behind a rocky hill, the sky turned dark purple. A fire crackled in a small heater they had repaired. They sat near it, sharing a simple meal. Bren spoke about his time on other planets. Ellen listened, then began to tell him stories too, not just of pain, but of strange sights she had seen during her escape. She told him about lightning storms that moved sideways, plants that sang in the wind, and animals that glowed when Touch Dot for the first time. Her voice carried wonder. Then the heater buzzed. The lights flickered. The power source was failing. Brent stood and opened a panel to check the system. Sparks flew out suddenly. A blast of heat hit him hard. He fell back, groaning in pain. His side was burned, his shirt torn. He tried to stand, but the pain stopped him. Ellen rushed to him, her eyes wide with fear. "Let me help," she said. Kneeling beside him, Brent gasped, trying to speak. "It's fine, just a burn. I can manage," but Ellen ignored his words. She pulled open the medkit and quickly scanned the wound. Her hands moved fast, trained and steady, but then her hands began to shake. She stared at the blood on his skin, then at the scanner. Her breath caught in her throat. "This blood," she whispered. "It's reacting with something." "What do you mean?" Brent asked. Ellen looked at him, fear rising in her eyes. "Your blood is rejecting something in the wound. It's not just a burn. It's reacting with leftover energy from the Xerath tech in the heater. That's not normal radiation. It's the same kind they used in my mask." Brent's face grew pale. "But not from fear." "Am I in danger?" he asked. "No," Ellen said. "But this confirms something I didn't want to believe." She pulled the scanner close and ran a second test. "You're not fully human anymore," she said. "Your body has changed. Not fully, but something in your cells has adapted after being near me. The tech in my old gear, it wasn't just scanning you. It was sharing part of me with you." Brent tried to sit up, wincing. "What does that mean?" he asked. Ellen looked down. "It means I'm not the only one who's different now. You're linked to me in ways we can't fully explain. Not by choice, not by force, but through time, trust, and contact." Brent breathed slowly, then gave a small smile. "Then maybe that's not a bad thing." Ellen's eyes widened. "You're not afraid?" He shook his head. "You've never hurt me. You've protected me, helped me. If this link means I understand you more, then I accept it." Tears formed in her eyes, quiet and sudden. "You don't understand what you're saying," she whispered. "What if this makes you a target too? What if it changes you in ways we can't fix? Then we face it together." Sage stared at him. Then her hands moved slowly toward his face. She touched the edge of his cheek, her fingers cold but gentle. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You saw what I am. You still stayed." Brent placed his hand over hers. "You asked once if I could still want you," he said. "The answer is yes. It was always yes." Her breath caught. For a moment, the room felt like it held only two people in all the galaxy. No war, no labs, no fear, just truth. "I've never heard anyone say that to me," she said softly. "Then you'll hear it again," Brent said. "As many times as you need." She nodded, and for the first time, a real smile touched her lips. Not a mask, not a shield, just her. The stars outside continued to shine, but inside that small building, something even brighter had begun to glow. The morning came quietly on the forgotten moon. A soft light covered the hills. The wind moved slowly through the dust, carrying no fear, no sound of war. Brent woke first. His side still hurt, but the wound was healing. The med patch Ellen applied had worked well. She had taken care of him without speaking much. Yet her silence was no longer cold. It was peaceful now. He sat up and looked around. Ellen was already outside. She stood near a rock edge, watching the sky. Her silver-lined skin caught the early light, and her hair moved with the wind. She did not wear her mask anymore. She had left it behind for good. Brent stood and walked to her. She heard him, but did not turn. Still thinking, he sketched, nodded. "Yes." "About what happens next?" He stood beside her and looked at the sky too. "You mean where we go from here?" Ellen nodded again. "I used to believe I had no future," she said. "That I was something broken, something made by others. But now I think I was wrong. I still carry pieces of them, but they do not own me. I am not what they created. I am more." Brent smiled gently. "You always were." She looked at him now. "And you? What will you do now? You're not a soldier anymore. You're not following orders." Brent laughed softly. "That never suited me anyway. Maybe I'll find a better use for my time, something good, something that matters." She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Would you stay with me? Not because you feel sorry for me, but because you want to. He looked her in the eyes and answered simply, yes, that's all I've wanted for a long time. They stayed there, standing side by side, looking out at a world that no one wanted. But to them, it was a place of peace, a place to begin again. Over the next weeks, they worked to rebuild part of the station. The old buildings were still strong underneath. With time, they made it livable, a shelter with working lights, clean water, and space to grow food. Ellen used what she knew about energy systems. Bryn handled the hard labor and made jokes when things went wrong. They laughed more, spoke more, trusted more. Other people began to find them. A trader who had lost his route, a family running from border conflicts, a group of young scouts looking for a quiet landing. Each time, Bryn and Ellen welcomed them. They offered food, repairs, and shelter. Word began to spread. Quietly, carefully, not as a base, not as a camp, but as a place where no one asked for your past, where no one wore masks. One day, a young girl arrived with her mother. The girl had strange marks on her arms, like Ellen's. She had been born in a lab and escaped during a raid. She said people stared at her, even when she didn't speak. Ellen knelt beside her and held her hands. You are not strange, Ellen told her. You are rare, and you are not alone. The girl smiled for the first time since landing. Bryn watched from a distance. He could see what Ellen was becoming. Not just a survivor, not just his partner. She was becoming a guide for others, a voice for those with no place to go. Later that night, as stars filled the sky again, Bryn and Ellen sat on the roof of the main shelter. The moon was quiet. The wind was soft. Do you ever miss the stars out there? She asked. The ones we used to fly past. Bryn shook his head. Not anymore. I've got everything I want right here. Ellen looked up. Even with all I carry. He touched her hand gently. Especially with that. You're not something to be afraid of. You're someone to believe in. She closed her eyes. No tears this time, just warmth. I never imagined this, she said. Not for someone like me. Then let's keep imagining, Bryn replied. Let's build something better than they ever thought we could. The next day, they added another solar panel to the roof. Then they taught the traders how to grow vegetables in dry soil. They fixed the old radio tower, not to call for help, but to send out a quiet message. It was a simple signal. One sentence in many languages. You are not alone. You are welcome here. The message traveled far, bouncing between empty satellites and forgotten channels. Some ignored it, some laughed, but a few listened, a few followed the signal, and slowly, one by one, the quiet moon became something more, a place of second chances, a place where masks were left behind, a place where a girl who once asked, "Can you still want me?" became someone who no longer needed to ask.